Hi guys, this is Steve Moss, pastor at Boulevard Christian Church. God's mission for us here at Boulevard is really simple. We help people find Jesus and we help people follow Jesus. And our teaching team hopes that this message that you're about to listen to will help you learn to grow and trust Him more than before. If it does, would you consider giving a gift to Boulevard to help us carry out the mission that God has given us? Thanks. We hope your heart is fully open to what God has for you in this message today.
Good morning, Boulevard family. Good to see you. Was gone last week, took off a little earlier than I'd planned. Left last Sunday morning and went to Raleigh, my hometown, Raleigh, Missouri, and my mom and dad had just situation had gone through COVID and getting ready to move. We moved them this last week into assisted living, and then left Thursday and headed to something some of you have heard me talk a little bit about. Every year I get together with about 9 or 10 of my old friends that I grew up with. Some was back as far as second and third grade. All of us graduated together, and we just sat out of the cabin for about 3 days and just enjoy each other's company and drink a lot of coffee and sit at the campfire and have such a great time. And this year was a little bit melancholy because this is our 20th year, which was really cool that we've been doing this for 20 years, but also the cabin that we have been going to for all that time. My good friend Russ is selling the cabin, so we realized this was our last time there, and so little tearful actually for a bunch of old guys at times as we talked through and got ready to leave. Saturday morning, everybody took off, and Russ and I were left, and he said, "Hey man, let's pour one more cup and sit here on the deck and just talk a little bit." And he proceeded to tell me about basically his decision after all these years to sell this piece of property that he bought a number of years ago, had built, has put so many hours into whatever, a lot of investment of time and money and energy and those kind of things, and how he did that. And then like all the stuff that's in it and all the stuff that's in their big barn. And he said, Sue and I decided just to sell it. And then we decided that takes a lot of time. So he kind of launched into this story about that they just said, he said, I looked at her one day and said, "Sue, let's just give this stuff away. Let's just get rid of this stuff." And some of it was not very valuable, and some things were pretty valuable things. And he said, I loaded it up on trailers, and we decided some charities, some gospel-driven charities that we knew in town, and I put it on trailers, and we took it and just said, hey, here it is. And then he said something to me that actually he continued, and I just stayed there. He said, we took it all out and gave it all away. And Steve, it was so liberating. So liberating. Yeah, thank you. Amazing. So liberating. And I thought to myself, that's really exactly what we have wanted to communicate this. This is not just about you giving more to the church. This is about what God has for you and I when we step into this whole idea of living and giving generously, what He has on the other side of that. The goal for this series that Jim and I have been speaking to you about these last 3 weeks is this, that you and I, as followers of Jesus, would take one step forward towards more generous living. When I started a couple of weeks ago, I said, hey, here's a key. The key is this, that we have to understand at the very front end that really there are 2 types of hearts, and only 2 types of hearts. There are those who live off everything and give off what is left over. They don't give anything at all. They believe that they are responsible for taking care of themselves. That's the first heart. The second heart is this, the one that knows that it is all God's. And as a result of that understanding and that belief, they buy into that and they give off the top and they live off what is left over. That's the 2 types of givers. So we're going on today, and I want to give you in just a second what I'm going to call the treasure key. The key, in a sense, to the treasure, all right? But I want you to know this, that I shared with you that first week that I am not a generous person. And I wasn't just saying that to try to get some connection. I am not by nature generous. I live with a little bit of, naturally, I live with a little bit of kind of a scarcity mindset. I don't naturally see needs and have not moved to those things in the past. And what I found, and not only in my giving, but there's just some times in my life that I just recently, in the last few years, where I just thought, okay, I want, and I think you have this in your hearts too. I just knew that there were some parts of my life, my heart, that were not given fully over to God. There are some things I had surrendered, but there are some things that I had not surrendered, and that bothered me. And I started looking, okay, like what can I do to push it forward? Okay, what can I do to push the car forward a little bit? And I tried some different things, and realistically, I didn't feel like they made a lot of difference. And then one day I saw this. I had seen it over and over before. I had, as Jesus says sometimes, seen but not seen, heard but not heard. And I read this and it spoke to me. I believe it is the key to treasure. Matthew 6:21 says this, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Now, we read that, and some of us have read that before, maybe some of us have not. But what the tendency is, even when we read it, what we hear is this: where your heart is, there will your treasure be. That's kind of what we think, but that's not what it says. It says where your treasure is, your heart will follow, or your heart will be also. See, your heart is the source and wellspring of your desires. When we think about heart, sometimes we have a tendency to think about it being that primarily the emotional driver. I'm mad, I'm sad, my heart is happy, my heart is sad. And there's some things, I guess there's some truth to that. But biblically speaking, when the Bible talks about our hearts, what it's talking about is it is the seat and the wellspring of whatever you desire in your life. What is it that you desire? We desire to be generous, I think. I believe that's why you're back here after hearing some pretty tough information the last 2 weeks. I think that you desire, like me, to be generous, and that you desire for more of your heart to be given over to God. I believe that. And Jesus says here, don't miss this. Jesus says that your heart and my heart can be moved by relocating our treasure. That we can change our desires, what we desire, what we want, by relocating, placing our treasure somewhere else. Simply put, my heart follows my treasure. And so when I invest my treasure in the things that are vital to God's mission, guess what? My heart, your heart, will follow. And so that which we want, which is more full hearts of God, bigger hearts for God and what He is about, those things begin to happen in our lives. Now, Jesus talks a lot about our eyes. You see a lot of in his teaching. He talks quite a bit about the eyes, what the eyes see. And your and I's eyes are on our treasure, right? I mean, wherever our treasure is, what we have invested in, we're guarding that like a hawk, right? You guys remember playing tag when you were kids? Playing tag? Come on. Did you really not play tag when you were a kid? Who was it, the kid who was hated in the game of tag? The kid who guarded the base. You're guarding the base. You can't guard the base. I'm not guarding the base. You're standing 2 feet from the base. You're guarding the base. Those were vile, wicked children, those base guarders. Oh, hated were they. Why were they guarding the base? Because that was what was valuable, because that's how you won the game. You kept other people from coming back to the base. You touched them before they got to the base. I had this happen to me, not in a game of tag, but a little higher stakes years ago. Started preparing for retirement, started investing in some mutual funds. Wise decision, at the time. And then I found myself checking them out all the time, watching my treasure. Not a bad thing. You want to keep track of it. But then I noticed this happen. Then I noticed mutual funds up, happy heart. You know what's coming, don't you, right? Mutual funds down. Bad day. How you doing, Steve? Bad day. Mutual funds down. Sad heart, happy heart. Sad heart, insecure heart, secure heart. My security was in those mutual funds. It was my treasure, and my eyes were on them. And what we want is our eyes to be on God, waiting for him to come through. When we believe it's all his and we believe that he will come through, then we're waiting. And so our eyes are now not on the mutual fund exclusively, but our eyes are on him, like, okay, God, we did this. I stepped into this thing like they've asked us to do. Like, now what? Because I got these bills over here. And we watch him, and then we see him begin to provide for us. And that's the challenge, is that for 90 days, that you all would take one step forward from wherever you're at, not giving to giving a little bit more, or to the biblical tithe of 10%. For 90 days, and something I'm going to challenge you to do before we even get to the challenge at the end is, as you're doing that, would you please get on our Boulevard family Facebook and just go, hey man, we tried this, we're doing this, and you're not going to believe what just happened. And sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's not. We covered that 2 weeks ago, but you're going to begin to see God be Jehovah Jireh, our provider, in ways that you've never expected. Get on our Facebook. Man, email me at steve@bccok.com. Email Jim at bccok.com and say, man, gosh, we just saw this happen, and we just want to celebrate it. That's exciting. And when that happens, when God begins to step in and provide in ways that you never thought could happen, this is what happens. Your heart moves towards the treasure, towards what you are investing in now, and it grows now in a daily, practical trust of God. And that trust, my friend, blooms into a love for him like you have never, ever known. And that's when it starts getting really good. And that's what God wants for you. So see, this is not just about giving more. That's not the end goal. It's what generous living unlocks in your heart and my heart. It ushers us into what Jesus has for you and I. And he wants it so badly. He wants that so badly that I will tell you, I think sometimes he will bring tough times into our life to see if we will lean into us, our own securities and sources, or whether we will lean into him. There's this story I want to share with you. And it really doesn't have to do with giving so much. It has to do more with the issue at hand, which is trust. If you look at Mark 5, what you find in Mark 5 is Jesus is going around doing his ministry, and it's like he runs into some faith-filled people. He runs into the Gerasene demoniac, who I'm not sure how much faith was there, but the man comes to him and wants to be healed and freed of these demons. And Jesus takes these demons out of him, and he finds this man has been bound by these demons so long, it finds freedom in his life. And then there's a guy runs up to him called Jairus, and he says, my little daughter is dying, would you heal her? And Jesus is on his way to heal Jairus' daughter, and the gal comes up that you may be familiar with, who has been bleeding for 12 long years, has spent all her money she has on doctors. She's still no better. She says, if I could just touch him, I'll be better. Practical daily trust. I just want to touch him. He'll make me better. So Jesus in Mark 5 has been dealing with these people who are full of faith, and he's been able to do miracles. And then in Mark 6, all of a sudden, you know where he goes? He goes home. He goes back home. Let me tell you, let me read for you what Mark says. He went away from there, and he came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him, and on the Sabbath, he began to teach in the synagogue. And many who heard him were astonished, saying, where did this man get these things? Look at their questions. What is the wisdom given to him? How are such mighty works done by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary and brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us? And they took offense at him. You got to catch this before we go on. Jesus, they could not believe or would not believe that Jesus was who he said he was and could do what he said he could do. And Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor except in his hometown and among his relatives and in his own household. And you got to catch this. 5 and 6, verse 5 and 6. And he could do no mighty work there except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them. And he marveled. He marveled at something we don't want to make Jesus marveled. These people made Jesus marvel because of their unbelief. Now, I don't know exactly what happens between this and the next thing, but what the next thing that you read that Mark is telling us is that in 5, he has encountered all these people of faith, and at the beginning of 6, he has encountered his hometown who has no faith. He was able to do great things. He was able to do no great things. And he gathers his 12, and I don't know, a little supposition here, but the next thing you see Jesus do, who recognizes that faith and trust is absolutely necessary and what God wants, it's necessary for us to do what God has for us. He gathers his 12, he gathers them together, he puts them in a buddy system, and you kind of got to picture this. He gathers them together, and it says he charges them to take nothing for their journey except a staff. No bread, no bag, no money in their belt. So imagine this. Okay, guys, everybody in your buddy? I got my buddy. Hold your hands up. You used to do this as camper, right? Okay. Peter's with Andrew. They're holding their hands up. We got our buddy. Okay. Everybody, you got your bag, your traveling bag, all right? I got my traveling bag. Okay. Chuck it. Excuse me? Sounded like you said, chuck it. I said, chuck it. Okay, everybody got your wallet with your money in it? I got my wallet with my money in it. Chuck it. Everybody got your 2 tunics? I got my 2 tunics. I've got folded my tunic nicely, and it's in a little plastic bag with my name on it. My mom did mine. You're that mom. Some of you are that mom. Okay, hold them both up. Chuck one. Whoa, excuse me. Anybody get your loaf of bread? I got my loaf of bread. Great. Chuck it. No bread, no bag. 1 tunic. Take nothing on this trip. Why? Why? I think it's pretty simple. Because, Dad, Jesus says, I want you to trust that my dad will take care of you. But I think there's something more. I believe that Jesus knows that what he is sending them to do, which is mighty works of healing and preaching the gospel and delivering people from demonic influences, is going to be a mighty work, and there is faith will be required. And so this whole idea of not taking anything with them is a faith muscle builder that builds their faith to the place that when they come to the person with the demon or the person who is dying or the person with the affliction, that they will go, hey, you know what? God's been providing for me for the last 2 weeks. He's provided all that I needed. The fact that I brought nothing that he's provided, I believe that he will provide here. He has prepared them in the small things so they are able to do the large things. And that's what generous living and giving does for us, folks. That's what it's about. Go lean and trust me, he says. He makes them rely on God to provide for their basic needs. And man, can you imagine the pushback on this? Well, excuse me? What am I going to do for lunch? I don't have any bread. Remember, when we believe we are responsible for meeting our needs, it will be irrational to give off the top. But when you and I begin believing it is all God's, the rational thing is to give off the top and live on what is left and allow him to provide for us. And before I go on, it's really, really vital that you guys see this. To see what they accomplished. Their trust in God to provide food and shelter and clothes allowed them to do what Jesus called them to do, which was healing and healing the broken and giving life and salvation. And I think that this, my friends, is the end game of generous living. That you and I might have the faith muscles to step into what God has for us to accomplish what is important. And what he has for you and I, as we take that step forward, even if it's a small step, he has peace for us. He has a freedom for us. He has us seeing God as Jehovah Jireh and being able to provide for us in all these situations. And what he has for others, as you and I invest in the kingdom, that makes it more possible for more people to hear the gospel, more people to find Jesus, more people to follow Jesus. And that is our mission. We help the broken find and follow Jesus. That's what this church is about. All right? Always. I know, as we talked about this, I know where I would have been several years ago if I was sitting in that chair. And that is that sometimes we have made decisions in the past, or we are making decisions even presently that are keeping us from being generous like we want to be. The desire's there, but we've just made so many bad decisions. We're just in knots financially. And I want to speak to that for just a moment, okay? I don't have a lot of time, but I wanted you to hear of a couple who was there because they had made some, according to them, some bad and unwise decisions over a period of time, small and large. And here's some things, here's what they did. And there's some very practical tips in here that I want you to hopefully hear. Here's a letter I asked them to, I said, just write me and tell me about your journey. Here's what they said. I guess the reason that we began our journey was that we just wanted to live our lives differently. We'd heard about Dave Ramsey and financial peace, and it was appealing. We had goals of building a house, and we realized we would need to get our current house paid off if we wanted to build. We took the class at Boulevard, and we went all in. This was a class we offered a number of years ago. We sold our SUV. We sold our truck. We sold our camper, and we bought sensible, older, economical cars. We sat down, and we made an Excel spreadsheet of our financials, and it made us, there were words, sick to realize how much we were spending on eating out in Amazon. We noticed we were buying groceries for the week, but then was really wasting those and then eating out anyways, just wasting a lot of money. We then took Dave's principles and we went hardcore. Here it comes. We paid cash for everything. We had our envelopes, and if we didn't have the money, we didn't buy it and we didn't do it. It took about 3 to 4 years, but it ended up paying off our house within 10 years of purchasing. Now that's the practical. Here's what you got to look forward to. It's definitely been a blessing to not to have to worry about our finances. It takes stress out of our marriage. It brought us closer together because we both went all in and changed our attitudes and habits. And they say it has allowed us to bless others and be generous and hopefully show God's love to others. For example, we've been able to donate to Christian camps. One Christmas, we gave single mothers a nice check to help them out. Or sometimes just helping kids in our school, kids' school that we see have particular needs. Folks, that's the practical decision to take a step forward, make decisions differently over the long haul, start where it doesn't seem like it's mattering much, and just stay with it until you get yourself to a place where you can live generously and debt is not over your heads. If I was going to say today, I'd say this: begin giving today. I mean, give something just to get yourself started. Don't go, okay, I'm going to wait till, in 1 month, man, we're going to start this thing. I would just say, give something. Start the habit. My mentor in my Celebrate Recovery process that I went through a number of years ago, someone in our group, might have been me, said, hey, I'm going to start my new diet on Monday. And he said this, he goes, why in the world would you want to continue a destructive habit any longer than you have to. And why would you want to put off a good habit, starting a good habit for 3 or 4 days? That doesn't make sense. And so I would say to you, start giving now. Give $5. Just start something that you begin to give, all right? Stop buying things today. Stop. When I say that, I mean this. Wait. A lot of our things we get into trouble with is we see something, we want it, all right, and we just buy it immediately because it looks shiny at the moment. Stop doing those things. Wait 72 hours before you purchase anything. I've included, all right, because I wanted you to have some resources, all right? If you'll show that slide, all right, okay? You can take a picture of this, and when you do, this is going to lead you to a couple resources that we have for you. One is just a really simple budgeting sheet. You can go down in a matter of not very many minutes at all and just write out, here is our budget, here's what utilities is, here's our mortgage or rent, here's what we're spending on groceries, okay? And that is the very first step you need to get an idea of what we owe on a monthly basis and where our money is going, all right? I've also given you a card or a resource called the Debt Snowball Method, all right? Here's the Debt Snowball Method if you're not familiar with it. You write out what all your debt is, smallest to the very, very largest. You begin making the minimum payment on each one of those. And then if you have a garage sale, have a garage sale. If you get a bonus, if you get a little overtime, whatever comes in a little extra, taxes, you take all that and you put it on the smallest debt. When you pay that off, then you take the money that you were paying on it on a monthly basis, add that to the next debt, all right, and you just begin to eradicate one at a time. The cool thing about this is you are allowed, as opposed to waiting for victory until the very end, every time you pay off something, just the next one, you get to celebrate a little bit. And I will tell you, we did this works, and you have some senses of victory that keeps you motivated through it. And it gets you there sooner than you realize when you begin to take all the money from the first and second and third and begin to put it to the next and the next. The debt goes away much more quickly than you would ever think, all right? I hope that you will download these, take a look at these, and step into it. Just a couple practical hints on how you can do this. I just saw my notes. Christmas is coming, isn't it? Should I even say anything, or we just get it? Okay. Someone said, we get it. Okay. It's like, no more. Okay. Man. We always want to buy something bigger and better for the grandkids at Christmas, don't you? I mean, you set this budget, and then pretty soon it's just gone. Just need to be careful. Be careful. It's right there on top of us. Some of us are already buying stuff. Be really careful so we don't start the new year with this sense of, oh my gosh, how am I going to get out from underneath all this stuff? Let's be careful. And folks, again, the end goal of this is not just so you can give more to this place. Okay, that's really not it. But I will tell you this. I will tell you that, and I shared earlier, that the mission of this body of believers that God has given us is to help broken people find Jesus and follow Jesus. And I want to remind you that these folks who wrote this letter are in a place now where a couple Christmases ago, they saw some single moms, some single dads, and said, hey, let's just bless you so you guys can have Christmas. They were in a position where they could do that. And that's what generosity does. It positions us to be able to respond when we see a need. And it positions us to be able to do the mighty things, all right, that God has for you and I. As our faith grows in the small things, we're able to more readily step into the bigger things, the things may require a little bit more faith. I talked with a guy 2 weeks ago and sat down and drank coffee with them, a member of our congregation. And we have a number of our guys go out to Just Done every week, the correctional center. And they just sit down with the guys and they're teaching them the word. And the church has been able to buy some curriculum and some Bible study materials for them. And this particular gentleman met a guy who is an inmate who is Hispanic. And he began to talk, and the gentleman speaks Spanish. And so he began to speak. And the guy goes, "You know Spanish?" Yeah, I know Spanish. So he goes out the next week and he's looking for this inmate. And he goes into this dorm area looking for this guy. And the guy, they said, "He's not here." What he found was another 30 inmates who all speak Spanish, who are hungry for someone to teach them the word. That's our mission and our vision. And that's the kind of things that's happening. And we are able to send, and we are able to purchase materials because of your generosity. That's how we're accomplishing our mission. And I met with a young lady about 3 weeks ago whose life has just been messed up by addictions, who has lost her kids and wants to get her kids back into her life. And she has found new life in this celebration time. And as we have spoken the word, and we're helping to move her into a city group situation where she can get that support. And that is all possible because of your generosity. I talked to one of the people off our GOT, our global outreach team, just several weeks ago, and they are planning a short-term missions trip to DR, and they're begin to look for people who they can be raised up and will go on that mission. And that's going to take money and funds to do the work there, and it's going to take funds to get people there, and that's made possible by your generosity. But it's got to be there. It's got to be there for those things to continue to happen. I want you to watch, if you would, a video of a couple.
Hey, Boulevard. This is Monica and Cy Huffer, and we are planning a church in Naples, Florida.
Go ahead.
We just want to say thank you for all that you all have done to enable us to be here to plant a church in Naples. It is because of your sacrificial giving, your tithing, your generosity that makes it possible for us to be here like missionaries in this place to start a brand new church.
It's really cool and humbling to have people that we haven't met that are excited to give to God's kingdom and see their gifts be blessed and used somewhere else. And it's really cool to be on this side of it to witness that. So thank you so much. It's an amazing gift to us.
Know that your giving is truly affecting people's eternal souls. Thank you for what you do.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right. So that's Cy and Monica Huffer. And Cy is a young man who grew up here all his life, went to Ozark Christian College, and is now doing ministry. And they've just chosen to do some church planting work at a place in our country where most people have not heard the name of Jesus. And Cy and Monica came and said, "Hey, can you help us get there? Because it's going to cost money." Our elders and our global outreach team was able to say, "Yes, we believe in what you're doing. It is an extension of the mission of this church, and we are helping you." And they're supporting them in a pretty major way. Why? Because of the generosity of you folks. We want to continue to be able to do that, to help more and more people do that. That is important to us. A man by the name of Paul Quaney said this: "I would like to be remembered as one who positioned himself to be used by God. Accepting the goal and stepping into generous living, just a small step, is the beginning of you and I positioning ourselves to be used by God for what He has for us. Not just about giving. It's about putting ourselves in a place where God can use us because we are trusting Him on a daily basis. I challenge you to take one step forward. You are chosen, my friends. And Jesus is charging you, challenging you to a growing trust that broken lives can be healed. Jesus says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Move your treasure, move your heart. When you came in this morning, there should have been, I believe, 2 challenge cards that looked like this and hopefully a pen in your chair. All right? Was it there? 2 challenge cards. One of them, they're almost identical. One has a place for your signature. The other one does not have a place for your signature, and this is important. We're not interested in having your name on a card. That signature is a covenant between you and the Lord that you will take a step towards more generous living for the next 90 days to test God to see how he will provide for you. And we want to hear the stories. I believe you'll continue, but we wanted to do it in a way that you could take a bite and test God's ability to provide for you. Here's what we're asking for you to do this morning. We're asking you to fill out both of these cards that you might take a step, if you have never ever given, that you might begin to give. Begin to give something. We're asking if you have given in the past or present, that you might increase your giving a particular amount or particular percentage. Name that, state it. We're asking for some of you, if you've been giving some, all right, that you might step into the biblical tithe, which when you see the Old Testament biblical tithe, it is 10% of your income, all right? And that's a stretch for some of us. But for some of us, it's what God has for us to do. That's between you and God. I would ask that you fill this one out with a signature. Put your signature on it. Take it home. Put it on the mirror. Put it on the fridge. Put it in front of you on your windshield of your car, wherever you will see it, okay? Fill the other one out. We have boxes at the back, all right, as you step out of the auditorium. Place the one with no signature, place that in the box, because we are excited about seeing how you accept the challenge. And we have been praying that there would be 25 people who would begin to give for the first time, 25 people who would increase their giving, 25 people who would step in and commit to the biblical tithe for these next 90 days. Folks, I want to give you a moment. I want to pray for you, and then I want to give you just a moment to fill out your cards. Then we'll sing our final song. Lord Jesus, I know, God, I know that there is fear in hearts and anxiousness. And some of us here are adding 2 plus 2 and adding mortgages and utilities in our heads right now and trying to figure it out, trying to be rational. Come to the hearts of my brothers and sisters and speak this truth. It's mine, and I will take care of you. Speak this truth. Move your treasure, and your heart will be moved. Show them what life can be as they step into generous living. I ask these things in the name of your Son, Jesus. We do love him. Amen. Thank you. Folks, I want to say this to you because I need to. When I started my first sermon a couple weeks ago on this, I said to you, we can speak on these hard things because you are a body of believers that not only allows us to speak on these things, but that you desire us to speak truth. And I need you to know this, that on that day, it was Sunday, fun day, fall day, I probably had more people speak to me and thank me for the sermon and for speaking truth than almost any sermon I have spoken in a long, long time. A sermon on giving. People don't thank pastors for sermons on giving. And I want to say to you, thank you. Thank you for desiring the truth and for allowing us to speak the truth to you. Thanks for being the body of Christ here at Boulevard that you are. You are loved, all right?